Today on Adjusting, we are talking about another cognitive distortion, personalization. Have you ever posted a photo or your friend posted a photo and they tagged everyone but you? Or you had a meeting and it went bad, so you took it personal and you said, well, the reason that wasn't successful is because of me. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to address personalization, where it starts, how it forms, how it shows up in the body. We're going to adjust from a negative to a positive personalization and figure out how we can lead with purpose and not our pain. And then we're going to apply 5 practical tools, okay? 5 easy things that you can do every day to show up as a new person. Remove the shame and the guilt and the fear and anything else that is keeping you from making the adjustments you need to live your best life. So grab your journal, your water, your blanket, whatever you need to do. Sit back and relax, and welcome to Adjusting. And we're back with another episode of Adjusting Podcast with your host, Justin G. Nelson. Y'all, we are on episode 11, I think. 11, 10, 11? I don't know. But we are close to the end. I know that much. Of the Cognitive Distortion series. And I am excited. I'm real excited about this episode, baby, because this one, adjusting to personalization, when you carry what's not yours, that right there is a word in itself. But before I get started, because I've been a little churchy these past episodes, I want to start by thanking you, the listener, for being here, for taking time out of your life and your day to make steps to the adjustments that you need to live a life full of purpose and love and joy and abundance. Thank you to TJ with Tea with TJ podcast for all the editing. We're gearing up for guests. I think TJ is going to be my first guest. He doesn't know it, but as he edits his video, he's going to be like, oh, thank you for telling him. So we're getting all of that set up. I'm taking donations because I got to buy a new computer and a new phone because I use my phone and my computer to do most of the editing and posting and stuff, and it's glitching. Okay, it is glitching. Other than that, I have an exciting thing to share with you. I had the privilege of doing a peer edit for the book Bitch, You're Not Stuck, You're Evolving with my friend JT Thibodeau. And I have a peer edit on the back of the book. So I'm not like an author, but I've done my first peer review. And I'm excited. So if y'all want to support JT and his book, you can do so by heading over to Amazon. I think it's on Barnes & Noble as well. And you can get a copy. I read the book, and my quote says, JT walks you through grief, identity, love, joy, isolation, and healing in a way that feels like your most honest friend finally said everything out loud. Justin G. Nelson, host of Adjusting Podcast. I'm excited. So everyone get you a copy today. Great. So now that that is out the way, let's get started with this episode by centering ourselves and grounding ourselves for this conversation. So if you are driving, focus on the road. Okay, I do that because my friend Larissa has an organization called Cliff Cares, and it's about distracted driving. So I'm always an advocate for like, hey, focus on the driving, okay, and support her organization too. But if you are in a space where you can ground yourself and center yourself, I invite you to do so now. Plant your feet flat on the ground. Relax your ankles, relax your shins. Relax your kneecaps and your thighs. Relax your hips. That's where a lot of stress and drama is stored. So relax that. Relax your stomach. Move up and relax your chest. Roll your shoulders back. Relax your neck. Relax your chin, your cheeks. Relax your forehead. Close your eyes. And we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7, and release for 8. Begin. Breathe in, 2, three, four. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let it all out. Ugh. Great. Now we're going to do it one more time. We're just going to take a deep breath in and out. Okay. So when you're ready, take a deep breath in and out. Let it all out. So this episode, as I take the staple out of my document, is very good. Like I think every single human has dealt with the cognitive distortion of personalization. Okay, so it's basically where you habitually take responsibility for things outside of your control. And it's kind of like the guilt, or I know for me, at work, I tend to take the blame for stuff because I know some people, if I take the blame for it, the repercussions are less. But if other people are blamed for something, it's just like you're fired, and it's just like it's not my role or my job to protect people, but as a cancer and someone who has been in this mental health journey for 5, 6 years now, I'm automatically like, because you are coming from a horrible place and they're not in the best place. So let me just be in the middle. But when it comes to personalization, you take things you take responsibility for things that are outside of your control, or assume that external events, other people's emotions and outcomes are a direct reflection of your worth, your failure, or your fault. Okay, so the internal logic sounds like this: my friend seems distant, so I must have said something wrong. Or this project didn't land the way we hoped, so clearly I wasn't capable enough. It was a group project, but you feel because of personalization that because it failed, it was because of you. And that is not the case. But again, childhood trauma and that environment, or sometimes in faith-based settings, we feel that because of a certain sin, blessings didn't come. And that is sometimes how leaders or faith-based leaders tend to preach the gospel. We're going to talk about that because I'm all about deconstructing harmful theology in a way that helps you. I'm not trying to bring people to Christ, okay? But I'm trying to let people know that church is still a safe space. Okay, great. So, from the inside, it can feel like you're just being reflective. You're just checking in with yourself, just, taking ownership. But there is a significant difference between genuine accountability, okay, and the reflexive belief that everything difficult is somehow a consequence of who you are. Now, it's important to name this. Personalization is not the same as taking healthy responsibility. Healthy responsibility asks, did I contribute to this? Or, if so, how can I make it right? Well, and if so, how can I make it right? Personalization says it skips everything and jumps straight to it was my fault. You take, I don't want to say you take the curiosity, but you take the bigger picture out of it. Just like, okay, well, I contributed the right numbers. I double checked it. Okay, I made sure all the specs were correct. I communicated my emotions. I paid my tithes and offering. Like, you did those things. That is healthy responsibility. That's healthy accountability. Like, you're taking ownership for the things you did. Personalization is different. You instantly said it was my fault. I take the blame for everything when you really had nothing to do with it. That's basically the whole premise of this episode. One is grounded in evidence, The other is a distortion dressed up as humility. So personalization also has two different directions, and both are worth talking about. The first is inward personalization, where you absorb blame for things you didn't cause. Okay. The second is outward personalization, where you attribute your own pain or suffering entirely to action of others. Everything bad that happens to me is because of what they did. That's not how karma works. Okay, and that's not how you should operate. Both forms distort reality. So we're going to talk about the inward version today because that to me is like one of the most important ones, and it's quietly connected to shame and self-worth. And like if we're adjusting to this new person, this new way of living and functioning and really trying to build our pyramid and heal our inner child, we have to focus on the inside. Okay, because it's only so much on the outside we can adjust, but on the inside we can do all the work. Okay, and then the inside will transform the outside. So how does this show up across the groups? We got to talk about it. Okay, so in friendships and peer groups, you're in a group chat. Now this has happened to me once. You're in a group chat and it's for y'all, you and three other people. You ask a question or you make a statement, nobody responds to you, and then somebody else asks the same question, everyone responds to them. Personalization goes, maybe they don't like me. They don't respect me. They just tolerate me. They're ignoring me. And now you're quieter in the next conversation because you already internalized something that was never actually said about you. Okay? In social situations, personalization can make you feel like a lightning rod for other people's energy. Someone sighs in your presence and you wonder what you did. Someone cancels plans and you immediately ask, what about you made the time feel not worth keeping? You're doing constant internal calculations. You're checking in with yourself, just like, oh, was I late, or did I pick the wrong restaurant? Like you're critiquing every single thing about yourself, and it's not you. Now, sometimes I feel like personalization is created in social settings because of the lack of communication and people's lack of authentic expression or showing up in situations. I know I have high functioning anxiety. Okay, so this series was just for me, and I take things personal. Okay, now I'm not far extremes. It's just like, oh, no one likes me. I don't give a fuck. But my point is, when people don't communicate things, at some point you start to question, like, is it me? Am I the drama? For creatives, this is huge for us, especially in auditions when you go into a room, you know you killed it, and then they give you nothing, you hear nothing back. Sadly, that's the industry. That's just how it is, okay? You know how to say no news is good news. Who made that up? I want to talk to you because I don't like that theory. But you share a piece of creative work, you a writing, a painting, a sketch, music, a demo, a reel, whatever, you name it, and you don't get the response you hope for. Now, I'll do this. I'll share a concept with someone and they go, "Oh, what do you mean? Oh, you know how much time and energy I put into this?" And all you got to say is, "Oh." We're fighting. And I'm not taking it personal. It's you, okay? But maybe people are quiet. Maybe the feedback is mixed. Personalization turns that moment into a referendum, basically saying that I'm not actually creative or I misread my own abilities. I should have known better. But the truth is, I'm jumping around here, but the truth is, sometimes the people we share things with lack the creative capacity to process the things that you're trying to share. And I realized that I was trying to have some really deep, intimate, vulnerable conversations with some people this week, and I realized that I was barking up the wrong tree. I was looking for an emotional response from people who lacked emotion. And I didn't take it personal. See, that's healing. Ah, God. That is growth. I realized, and something my friend taught me a long time ago, you can't expect you from everyone, and you can't expect everyone to match your energy when it comes to a certain situation. A lot of people don't understand the passion, the purpose, the joy, the excitement, the time and energy that went into something until the end result comes and they see the fruit of your labor. Those aren't your people. And you shouldn't take it personal, because I promise you there are a group of people out here who will root for you from beginning to end. Sometimes you can kind of compare, you can loosely compare it to pregnancy. Oh my God, you're pregnant. Ain't nobody checking on you like them other the 8 months. You had the baby. Oh my God, you had the baby. But you weren't there. Like when I would, or I can't say I because I can't have babies, but like through the morning sickness or the other situations that happen during a pregnancy, like that's my comparison for this episode, and I'm gonna leave it there because I don't want to mess this up. But you see what I'm trying to paint there. Great. And for creatives, especially, personalization can create a deeply protective instinct to stop sharing altogether. If every piece of feedback lands as evidence of personal inadequacy, eventually the safest thing is silence. If you go into a room for an audition, I can speak about this because I've done it, and every audition has been a no, has been a head down. We're looking at the paper. You ain't got a call back. You ain't hear back or nothing. At some point, you start to think it's you. You start to feel, and I know for me, I was talking to Ebony about this the other day. I was just like, I'm starting to feel I'm not booking stuff because I gained weight, and I took it personal. Like I look at Broadway and a lot of people on the stage, and these folks skinny. Okay, and it's sad. Well, mainly ensemble. I'm 5'4", so it's only so many lead roles I can book. But for the ensemble, you gotta be in shape, and like I want to get in shape for my personal health and well being, but also for this profession. Like it's a thing, and I take it personal. But every piece of feedback lands as evidence. I said that, and then keeping the work in the drawers, skipping the submission, not going to the auditions, staying behind the scenes, and the world misses what you were made to offer, not because the work wasn't worthy, but because personalization convinced you that you weren't. I told you this episode was personal. Okay, no pun intended to being personalization, but a lot of us do that on our healing journey. Okay, sit down. I need you to hone in on this. On our healing journeys, okay, if you grew up in a faith tradition where the theology, this is my Deacon Nelson hat, where the theology of suffering was tied to personal behavior, whether it's illness or loss or hardship, and it was preached as a consequence of sin, weak faith, or spiritual misalignment, then personalization wasn't just a thinking pattern you develop, it was handed to you as doctrine. And I talked to my friend Sierra about this. A lot of times, Black people don't experience, we lead with some type of negative emotion because we always wait for joy or peace or happiness or love or success to be the outcome. We don't lead with love or joy or peace because we are wired through generational trauma that if you have pain, you will get joy. If you suffer, you will get joy. And that is the same doctrine that is preached in church. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Why can't I have joy at night? Okay, why can't I be happy at night? It's always the darkness to light paradox that pops up in a story. But like, how did we make that normal? How? How? And like that to me is an example of personalization. We always assume the worst, take the worst. But if we switch it, and we'll talk about this in the end, we'll talk about it in the end. So I'm getting ahead of myself. But you didn't learn to make everything about your inadequacy on your own. You were taught that God's favor was something you could lose, And that when things went wrong, the first place to look was inward, not with curiosity, but with being accusatory. For many people, this is where deconstruction begins. Welcome. Not as an intellectual exercise, but as a survival one. When you've spent years interpreting your own suffering as evidence of spiritual failure, when every hard season became a reason to question your worthiness before God rather than the framework you were handed, at some point, something in you starts to resist. That resistance is not a loss of faith, it is often the beginning of a more honest one. Deconstruction, at its best, is the practice of separating what is true from what is simply taught loudly and often wrong. Yeah. The complexity here, and this is again Deacon Nelson talking, is that these traditions, because I love traditions, but they got to be a little flexible, okay? These traditions also carried real beauty, real community, okay, real moments of genuine transaction, genuine. I mean, when all God's people come together, what a day of rejoicing it would be. I think we've missed the rejoicing part and swapped it out for performance, okay? Because deconstructing the theology of personalization doesn't require burning it all down. We don't have to burn down the traditions. It requires learning to hold on with discernment to ask, does this teaching bring me closer to love or does it keep me small? Am I doing what thus says the Lord or what thus says my pastor? That's where I'm trying to paint this picture. The question alone can be the beginning of untangling a lifetime of inherited self-blame from actual faith. What many people discover in that untangling is the very version of God they were taught to fear. The one that keeps scores on your failures, the one whose silence doesn't mean disapproval, was never the whole picture. And the personalization that felt like reverence, was actually just shame with the theological frame around it. The doors of the church are open. Yeah, I really had to include that in this episode because I feel that we personalize sin. We make the sin personal. And sometimes sin is the gray and the curiosity that happens. But because of harmful theology, grace is never considered in the equation of it all. Like pregnancy before marriage, you're a harlot, you're a whore, like those things. And I'm just like, was it their fault? And it gets muddy. So give yourself grace, okay? If you're in that space of deconstruction, give yourself grace. In language, daily life, and goal setting, personalization shows up in how you talk to yourself after setbacks. You don't say that didn't work. You say, I don't work. You don't say that timing was off. You say, I always get it wrong. You always downplay and make, I don't want to say make it extreme. Okay, you do make it extreme. You go the worst route. Is always the negative route. That wasn't successful, is my fault. And I find that a lot of people who deal with the anxiety of personalization are low-key people pleasers, but also often apologize excessively. And why are you apologizing when it was never your fault to begin with? Like, we're going to work through that. But with goals, personalization can sabotage before you even begin. You have tried something before and it didn't go the way you wanted. Personalization encodes that as personal proof of your ceiling. We talked about this. I tried launching something and it failed, so I'm not someone who can build things. That is not data, okay? Like we talked about data and facts last episode. That is a story, and that is one that that is one that personalization will keep telling you until you learn to interrupt it. So how does it show up as trauma and anxiety? If you haven't figured out already, I'm going to tell you, okay? So, for people who have experienced personalized trauma, especially relational or developmental trauma, personalization is often not a thinking error at all. It's not. It's how you were wired. And we talked about neuroplasticity, okay? It was a survival strategy. When you grew up in an environment where the adults around you were unpredictable, emotionally volatile, and unavailable, you learned to scan for what you could control. What felt most controllable was you. If you could figure out what you did wrong, you could fix it. If you could take on the blame, maybe the situation would stabilize. Personalization in those early environments was your nervous system's best attempt at keeping things safe. If you want to get clinical and technical, the term is hyper responsibility. If you or someone you know deals with hyper responsibility, give them a hug and tell them they don't have to take it on. It is not their responsibility. And it often develops alongside anxious attachment styles. We talked about this season 2, adjusting your attachment. My anxious attachment people, yeah, it's deeper than you think. When love felt conditional and safety felt fragile, the child learns that they are the variable. If I'm good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, maybe the storm won't come. That hyper responsibility doesn't disappear when you leave the environment where you learned it, okay? It becomes your default orientation toward the world, a constant low grade assumption that you are responsible for the emotional weather of every room you enter. So where did it start? If you grew up in a home, like I said, where a caregiver's emotional state was unpredictable, you likely spent your childhood reading moods before they were even spoken, embracing before anything happened. Childhood rejection does the same thing in different ways. I was rejected a lot as a child, okay? I ain't have a lot of friends. Woo-side. But when you were consistently on the outside, left out, excluded, overlooked, and no adult helped you understand that it wasn't a reflection of your worth, your brain made the only conclusion available to it. Something about me is the problem. I experienced this all throughout elementary school, baby. Listen, if it wasn't for my teacher, Miss Brenda Lewis, I probably wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't be doing this episode, okay? Because I was bullied. I was bullied by students, by teachers, and it got to the point where I was like, "What are we doing? Like, what are we even doing?" Like, it was one instance where I wasn't picked for the step team. I think I shared this in like one of the first 2 episodes. I wasn't picked for the step team. I didn't get to be in the band, and then I think at the last minute they gave me the crash cymbals. Baby, I killed them cymbals. You couldn't tell me nothing. Okay, I did it one time, then I lost interest. And then the icing on the cake, and I get upset about this to this day. Miss Griffith, whatever her name is, she was pregnant, and she used to spit in the cup, and I called the principal on her for that. It was disgusting. But anyway, when graduation came, I was valedictorian, and I still think to this day, she purposely spelled my name wrong because she used to call me gay. And she put my name as Justine Nelson. Ma'am, I wish evil upon no one, but if it happened to her, oops. So yeah, that was traumatizing all throughout elementary school. I don't know where she is, but I hope she's well or not. Anyway, adjusting to personalization. So why the shift matters: shame and self-worth, purpose and grace, and the inner critic. Why shifting this pattern actually matters. So here's the thing about personalization. It is exhausting. All of this is exhausting, okay? Not just emotionally, but energetically. Because again, it deals with your nervous system. When you are the variable in every situation, every room you walk in, requires constant internal calculation about whether you are the cause of whatever is or isn't working. You are spending enormous amounts of energy on a job that was never yours to do. And for many people, that exhaustion has another name. I give you 1 second to guess it because we do it all the time. You got it? Code switching. Yep. Yep. The constant, often unconscious work of adjusting how you speak, how you present, how much of yourself you let show depending on who's in the room. Code switching is personalization's cultural cousin. Who would have thought? Who would have thought code switching was some type of cognitive distortion? I had to put that in there too. Rooted in the same belief that who you are is the problem and that the solution to become a version of yourself the room can accept. It was often necessary, but it carries a cost. It does. When you are always editing yourself in the audience, you eventually lose track of where the performance ends and where you begin. Relationships suffer a lot under personalization. When you assume you are always the problem, you stop asking real questions. People don't have conversations, okay? You stop saying, hey, are you okay? Because you already decided it's you. And that inward collapse can read to other people's as withdrawal or not caring when you actually are just drowning in depression or a story that you made up that created you as the villain before the scene even started. Like, no, talk to me, talk to them. Okay, have the conversation. Professionally, it keeps people small in ways that are easy to miss. Not applying because rejection would mean something about your worth. Over apologizing in meetings, okay? Working twice as hard to prove you belong. Sometimes that extra work is real because the systems around you have made belonging conditional. But personalization makes it personal when it isn't always. Learning to tell the difference between the barrier is me and the barrier is the room. That's not healing work. Okay. That's not just healing work. That's clarity work. Maybe that's kind of the name of my book, Adjusting Your Clarity. That's an episode. Okay, I like that. So I want to talk about shame, guilt, and the distortion of self-worth. And I talked about this on Instagram the other day, but sexual shame. Sexual shame is one of the most painful and least talked about places where this loop lives. So whether it came from a religious tradition that treated your body or desires as something to be managed and suppressed, from experiences of violation where the blame landed on you, or from cultural messages that made you feel like your sexuality was either too much or fundamentally wrong, the result is the same. Your body becomes the evidence of your badness, not something that happened to you, not a context you were handed. You, period. And the personalization ensures that shame stays personal, routing every experience that touches that wound back to the same conclusion: there is something wrong with me at the core. Untangling sexual shame from personalization is slow to work. Okay, now I don't want to be a sex therapist because that's a lot. That's a lot of trauma. But I do want to create the space where people can remove their sexual shame. It's tender work and it's some of the most freeing work there is. I think I talked about this last week, but a lot of people are searching for freedom, like freedom, expression, free will. And I feel that sometimes a lot of our restraints are rooted in sexuality and sex. And I just want people to be comfortable. Okay. Just do you and don't care about other people's judgment. But shifting from a negative to positive personalization, we're going to talk about that, aligning with purpose and grace. That good old grace. So here is the most important reframe in this episode. Again, I love reframing. Personalization is not inherently a bad thing. Okay. It becomes distorted when it's negative. When it says everything bad is because of you, but the same instinct redirected, a reframe, becomes something powerful. The capacity, I love the word capacity. It's just something about it. The capacity to own your gifts, your impact, your calling with the same conviction you've been owning your failures, baby, that's not arrogance, that's purpose. Okay? See, that's what I was talking about earlier. When we can learn to lead with love and joy and happiness and purpose and success, that's that reframe, okay? And the shift from it must be my fault to I was made for this. Oh, that's powerful. That it at the core, that is a spiritual awakening. That's a spiritual act. And I'm kind of emotional. And I want more people to experience that. Okay? Like imagine waking up and was like, thank God I get to do this again. Instead of here we go again. I get to do this again. I get to share my gift with someone who hasn't seen it yet. I get to, and like for performers, I know a lot of us are wrapped up in the entertainment industry. We hate an 8 show week, okay, and capitalism at its core. But if we allow capitalism to dictate our success and our joy and our purpose, we will forever fall in that loop. We will be in that cycle. But if we shift to a positive personalization and we have this spiritual awakening and this reframe where we can lead with the conviction of that our purpose is our guide, I think that's beautiful. I could end the episode here, but I got some more to talk about. So, grace in this context is not just a theological concept, okay? So we're gonna take that out of there. It is a practice of extending to yourself the same generosity you would extend to someone you love, okay? When a friend makes a mistake, you don't conclude that they are the mistake. You hold the complexity. You see the whole person. Grace asks you to do the same with yourself. Stop collapsing every hard moment into a verdict about your worth. Because when you stop spending your energy absorbing blame that was never yours, you finally have something left over to create with, to connect with, to build with. That is what purpose feels like. And it starts here. It starts with shifting from a negative personalization of you to a positive one. Waking up with purpose, not with pain. With joy, not jealousy. With hope, not haters. You got it? Great. Now, the inner critic and the childhood connection, the voice doing the personalizing, almost never originated with you. I try to put that in every episode, reminding you that most of the time, most of the anxiety, the negative self-talk, the doubt, the fear, the shame, the harmful theology, it never started with you. So that's why I say give yourself grace. As you go through this healing journey of trying to rewrite these stories that were created and passed on to you. It was learned, it was shaped by environments and people and messages repeated often enough that eventually became your own inner voice. Maybe it was a caregiver who said, look what you made me do. The teacher who made an example out of you, who might have picked on you. And again, forgive me, I wish harm on no one. Miss Griffith, I hope you're doing well. I think that was her name. I don't care. But the community that equated your struggles with spiritual failure, the psychological term, we give some terms again for this, is introjection. introjection. Absorbing external messages until they feel like self-knowledge. But here is what's true. You did not arrive in the world believing you were the source of everything that could go wrong. God don't operate like that, okay? Now, I'm going to get churchy. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but God has given us power. Great. That was taught to you. And one of the most quietly revolutionary things to ask yourself, whose voice is it? If you can identify whose voice it was, you can mute their ass. You can remove them. You can tell them to shut up. You can silence the haters. You can silence the doubters. You can silence those who are pouring negative things into your ecosystem. Remove them. That's your homework. Start removing people who don't support you, who doubt you, and these are not people. I'm just being real, I'm thinking outside the box. F you and that box. Okay? Who put me in a box anyway? You're not my person. Bye-bye. The inner critic that learned to personalize everything is not your enemy. It was trying to protect you, trying to give you some area or sense of control in environments where you had very little. The goal is to not shame it out of existence. Like Marie Kondo, it's to thank it. Thank it for doing what it thought it needed to do at that time. You are a new person. Every day you wake up, on the other side of the grave is another opportunity to rewire and rewrite any shame or harm that was given to you. You do not have to carry it your whole life. No, but who said that? Nowhere on your birth certificate, on your high school diploma, or any bill said you have to carry this stuff with you your whole life. You chose that. But a lot of people make hurt and any negative personalization their personality. No, you don't have to do that, okay? You are not the problem. You never were. Somebody else made you think that. So here are 5 things. We're shifting to the last part of this episode, applying. 5 things to ask yourself when personalization kicks in. Number 1, is this actually mine to carry? Okay? The moment you feel that reflexive pull towards inner blame, pause and ask it out loud or in writing. Not everything that goes wrong around you is evidence of your inadequacy. That one question creates enough space to interrupt the automatic leap to the negative side of personalization. Number 2, what do I actually know versus what am I assuming? Personalization prefers stories over facts. Slow down and ask yourself, did someone actually tell you it was your fault or did you decide that? Evidence. We need evidence, okay? We need receipts. Evidence checking isn't about dismissing your feelings, okay? It's about making sure they're not the only thing making the case. Where are the receipts? The third thing, what else could be true? When personalization says they're quiet because of me, genuinely ask what other explanations exist. Okay, I know it wasn't me. Consider the source. What else happened? What did you eat today? Did you eat today? Was it your boyfriend? Was it your girlfriend? It wasn't me. So I'm not taking this personal. Number 4, did I contribute? If so, how? Tell me how, or tell me why. But anyway, how did I contribute to this? Sometimes you do play a role in hard dynamic and honesty matters, okay? But there's a real difference between I had an impact I want to own and I am the reason everything falls apart. One is accountability, the other is personalization. And the last thing, can I say this out loud to someone else? Personalization thrives in isolation. Write that down. The moment you hear yourself say, I think the reason everyone was off today was because of me, you'll notice how large you've magnified. They're kind of blending together. How large that claim actually is. Externalizing it is often all the examination it needs. So in friendships, when the energy shifts, hold the ambiguity before you fill it with the name. Reach out with curiosity, not an apology. Okay, curiosity keeps the connection open. It's just like, ask like open-ended questions, Personalization closes it. In creative work, a quiet response is not a verdict of your worth. Give your work and yourself the grace of time before one moment becomes the whole story. At work, do a clean debrief, before you do a self-indictment. Feedback about your work is not personal information. It's not a character evaluation. It's just feedback. It's showing there's room for growth. In healing and safe in faith spaces, your slow progress is not evidence of your inadequacy. Healing is not linear. Your pace is not a punishment. And lastly, in daily life and goal setting, separate the lapse from the identity. I did not show up is a behavior. I never followed through is personalization. You are allowed to begin again. So, here's what I want you to hold as you move throughout this week. You were not put on this earth to be the reason everything goes wrong. Okay, you feel better? You were put here to build something, to connect with people, to create things, to heal and grow and show up in a world in a way that is uniquely yours, operating in your purpose. And none of that is possible when you are spending all of your energy carrying weight that was never yours to begin with. Okay? So if you don't get nothing else from this episode, put the baggage down and carry what's only yours. You can't make it to the top if you are carrying everybody else's load. They got their own, okay? The work of learning personalization is not the work of becoming someone who never takes accountability. It is the work of becoming someone who knows the difference between what is theirs and what is not. The distinction is one of the most liberating things you will ever learn. Just asking yourself questions. Remember those 5 things we talked about. Stop, breathe, take time, pause, consider the source, all those things. Because the truth is, so much of what you've been carrying, it was never about you. And the moment you start to sit it down, you'll finally have your hands free of everything you were actually meant to hold. Until next time, keep adjusting. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. I hope you take something away to help you make the adjustments you need. Before you go, please take a quick second to share this with someone you care about. And if you can, please leave a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. For more information about adjusting or to inquire about being a guest, head over to adjustingpod.com. Until next time.